Well, thanks a lot for staying with us here on Sunrise Live on E this morning. It is a Hope Day Wednesday. As you know that we always try to give you some information as well as reason for you to feel hopeful. We're about to get into our health slot in a short moment. Obviously, the big conversation for this morning is about mental health. And so exactly how is it that we can become better aware of our mental state? And also, most importantly, how is it that we can surpass existing stereotypes when it comes to mental health? Are we growing as a South African community? Are we not growing as a South African community? Or are we, in fact, losing the battle when it comes to our confidence in people, especially when it comes to mental health? Now, what research is actually showing is that in South Africa, 1 in 3 people will experience a mental illness in their lifetime, and about 23 people will commit suicide each day. 23 people will commit suicide each day. It is the month of July, which has officially been marked as Mental Health Awareness Month. So this is the time where South African Depression as well as Anxiety Group are out to educate South Africans on mental health as well as the fighting of the stigma surrounding mental illness. And of course, to actually help us unpack the issue of mental health and the importance for us to actually maintain our mental health is Nkini Phasha from SADAG, and is joining us this morning to talk about mental health. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Thank you.
Sure. It is an issue that one can never shy away from, but
Indeed.
I think that it is an issue that we do not speak about enough.
Totally.
So talk to us about mental health and the reason why July is marked as a Mental Health Awareness Month.
Indeed, you know, and I like the fact that you saying that we don't talk about it enough.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the stats that you just mentioned are actually quite startling. You know, so sitting here, 1 in 3 South Africans suffer from a type of a mental disorder.
1 in 3. So in other words, if I had to do like a Trevor Noah,
Yeah.
1, 2, pa.
Exactly.
And pa would be penny.
Will be, exactly.
Or faith, for that matter.
Indeed.
Or Mark.
Indeed. So
Okay.
it's telling us that we've got a huge problem in this country.
Yeah.
You know, and we've got still a lot of people that are taking away their lives. You know, more than 20 successful suicides a day in South Africa. So we should really, you know, be standing up and creating the awareness and the education around mental health.
Yeah.
You know, in general. I mean, if you look at the 5 top, you know, mental illnesses that affect
I was actually going to
people.
ask you that about the mental illnesses, because in the South African context, if it's
Yes.
1 in 3,
Yeah.
what is the most prevalent? What is that 1 in 3? That
So
is
we're
most
looking
prevalent?
at major depression.
Major depression.
Yeah.
So that means that 1 in 3 South Africans are heavily depressed.
Exactly.
Got you.
Exactly. And remember, depression is very linked to suicide. So if somebody takes away their lives, the likelihood that they actually were depressed is very, very high.
But we're
More
looking
than
at a good
70%.
15 to 17 million people
It's
currently in
huge.
South Africa, because there are 55 million South Africans. If you have to count and do a calculation of a third of that
Yeah.
population,
Exactly.
we're talking millions of people.
We're talking millions of people. So
Yeah.
it's telling us that you've got a huge problem. We don't talk about it enough. There's still not enough awareness and the education around it that people actually, number one, understand.
Yeah.
When you're talking mental illnesses, what are you talking about? How can they get help, you know, if they are actually suffering from a type of a mental disorder? Now, just going back to the most prevalent types of mental illnesses in our country, major depression, you know, a big one.
Yeah.
Anxiety disorder. Now, remember, a lot of people will talk about being stressed. You know, oh, I feel stressed. You know, I can't cope because I'm stressed. And very often people think that when you say you're stressed, it's sort of the more acceptable, you know, term.
It's almost like we say, when you say we're stressed, we use it as I always say we call stress the badge of honor.
Yes.
You know, it's like when somebody says, oh, I'm so busy.
Absolutely.
And then you call it a badge of honor because it makes
Yeah.
us feel better. It's almost like we're doing something proactive
We're doing
with our
something, you know,
lives.
I'm so busy. Oh, you know what? I've got this fast-paced life. You know, I'm in and out in that. And really without, you know, realizing that actually the stress, this, you know, persistent and prolonged, you know, stress, actually it's a type of an anxiety disorder. In fact, let me put it that way. But also that can lead to a much more severe type of a, you know, of a mental disorder.
Yeah.
You've got also, you know, substance abuse. I mean, it's a big one, you know, in our country. There's easy access to recreational drugs and alcohol. And of course, alcohol is socially acceptable, so people don't usually deem it to be a drug, but it is a drug. You know, so substance abuse is also a big one. Schizophrenia, and of course, bipolar disorder.
Yeah.
So those are the top 5 mental illnesses that affect South Africans.
A third of the South African
Indeed.
population
Yeah.
that is growing more and more.
Yeah.
What are the symptoms? And I think before we get to the aspects of treatment and also looking at the stigmas that currently exist, because one would say that too many of us go,
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Or a person is crazy instead of being able to say this person actually has got this kind of a disorder.
Yeah.
So tell us about the symptoms. I mean, if I'm displaying whatever symptoms, how do I know that I've got
I mean,
problem?
obviously the different types of, mental illnesses have got different sets, of symptoms that would characterize that type of a disorder. But if we take depression, for example, here we're talking about it's a mood disorder. So the significant change in mood where you're consistently and persistently feeling sad, you're feeling down.
Like a dark cloud is hanging over you.
Exactly. You are hopeless. You actually have got no hope for the future. You feel helpless. You may feel also irritable. And of course, we know that, men and women, also present differently or manifest different types of, symptoms.
Okay, so let's talk about the woman. What kind of symptoms do women display?
So you may be very tearful, crying
all the time.
All the time. Your eating patterns will change. You might actually engage in what we call comfort eating, where you start, eating a lot. Other people, their appetite goes and they cannot eat,
I have to calculate what's in my bag now. Gosh, this conversation is becoming more and more difficult every time I listen to you.
Don't worry, we'll help you. And changing sleeping patterns, you may actually have insomnia, so where you are battling to actually fall asleep. Others, they will sleep for extended amounts of time, but they're still waking up very fatigued and really are, not having the energy or the drive to do anything.
So that's still from women's side. Women like to be comfortable, so they'll comfort eat, they'll cry a lot.
Exactly.
They don't, it's very difficult to wake up in the morning. Men.
And which is why in statistics we're counting more women than men. But that does not mean that men are actually not affected. They don't experience this. Unfortunately, because of the type of society that, we live in, men, we are brought up that, you don't cry. You don't show your emotions. So therefore, it means that a lot of us as men, we don't present, we don't come forward because we don't want to be seen to be weak.
Are you saying then the symptoms are there, it's just that they have not been detected because men have been taught not to show their feelings?
Exactly. So what do we do as men? We try and cope with them ourselves. So what do? We turn to the bottle, we turn to recreational drugs, we may, I become a workaholic, I may become, engage in what we call endorphin-dependent behavior.
What's endorphin-dependent behavior?
Endorphin-dependent is where I spend hours and hours in the gym, pumping that iron. And you're thinking, oh my goodness, this guy is so much into fitness. But meantime, that is my escape. That is my outlet in trying to deal with my emotional and psychological distress. Remember, you may engage in in risky, type behavior. So I don't really want to label infidelity as really necessarily a symptom of mental disorder. But certainly you may then start engaging, because remember, when you are using alcohol, when you are using recreational drugs,
or any form of addiction,
you become less inhibited, and then therefore it actually propels you, to engage in a lot of other activities which you might not necessarily under normal circumstances
now,
engage in.
With the stereotypical sort of South African setting where stigma is particularly rife, so we're speaking about schizophrenia a little bit earlier on, society still is not able to say there's a problem with this individual, they're displaying signs of maybe extreme depression or even some form of schizophrenia, let us get them help. It's usually society shuns that individual away without being able to address the problem. How do we overcome that existing narrative?
And Faith, we always often talk about, mental health or mental illnesses as being the black sheep of the medical fraternity. So if you think back in the olden days, when you had, for example, schizophrenia, you'll be chained and you'll actually be removed from the community that you're in, from society. And this is the kind of things that, number one, fuels the myths around understanding that schizophrenia is actually a type of a mental disorder. It's a medical condition. So there's huge amount of stigma when people don't understand something. When people are not empowered or informed about something, they tend to actually label it. And very often that labeling is quite negative. So these are the kind of things that really drives the stigma. So mental illnesses are hugely stigmatized in our society.
Even bipolar, I would presume, because you've got extreme downs when you don't want to get out of bed.
Indeed.
And then you've got the high where you empty out your bank account and go buy a car.
Absolutely, you are manic, and everybody thinks, oh my goodness, faith is on top of the world. You've got this ticket. Faith is actually suffering. Faith is actually having a medical condition, and it's very important that people understand that mental illnesses, just like you have diabetes, just like you can be hit by a stroke, you've got hypertension, it's a medical condition. So you don't call it upon yourself. It is a medical condition.
So obviously to get people some help, and I'm just looking at our time, to get people some help, what must we do?
People should get in touch with us as the South African Depression and Anxiety Group.
Sure.
We are all over. This month of July, we're really out in full force, creating the awareness and educating our society about mental illnesses. We want to turn the tide. One life too many, where we are losing people to suicide. It is a catastrophe. So people can get in touch with us. We've got our website, we've got our trained counselors that man our contact center from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week throughout the year. So absolutely, on social media, we've got a footprint there that people can engage with us. And of course, we go into communities, and this is what we're going to really be doing in this month as well, conducting workshops and engaging with various members of the communities to empower them, setting up support groups in those communities to ensure that people have got a forum where they can actually be able to get the support and talk and get the help that they need.